Stefon Diggs was, at least to me, a surprising election as captain of the Houston Texans. The team voted on captains earlier this week. CJ Stroud, Laramie Tunsil, Will Anderson, Jimmy Ward, Azeez Al-Shaair, and Stefon Diggs. DeMeco Ryans was asked about Diggs being named a captain at his press conference this morning.
Who are guys, Pete? I feel like the guys know, right? That captain decision. I'm excited about it because it's not my vote. It's not my decision, right? It's the men in the locker room who are around each other, who work together on the field and truly get to know each other. And that's who they feel like our leaders are. And, it says a lot about all 7 men who were selected, like the impact that they have on our team, the impact that they have on all the players, young and veteran, right? It's really cool to see, Diggs being his first year here with us and him getting elected as a captain. I think that's a special moment, and it shows the type of man that he is, the type of leader that he is, and the impact that he'll have on our team throughout this year.
Jon Weeks, the 7th captain that I did not list there. 7 captains.
The disrespect.
Forgot. It's weird. They posted, everyone who broke the news said they announced 6 guys as captains. And then all of a sudden, forgetting about Weeksy, the longest tenured Texan franchise history.
Don't understand how you can be so disrespectful, such a fundamental player to this franchise.
I mean, he is. You got to have somebody who's snapping the ball to the kicker.
It's true.
And the punter.
He's right. It is cool. Like, the players, they decide who does this. And it's cool to see that Stefon Diggs has so far, and hopefully for the entire season, is going to be the ultimate teammate.
He's done everything he's been asked to do.
100%.
So I can understand why players would vote for him. He's been a good vibes guy ever since joining. All I'm saying, this is not me predicting the future. I'm just saying his history shows that he is a guy that gets frustrated often. He's been a captain before. Do you want a player who regularly gets borderline pouty, borderline sulky as one of your captains? Maybe you do, because the guy plays well enough and because he cares so much and he practices so hard. And that is something with Diggs that is true. The guy busts his ass at practice. Watching him at training camp, he looked like the best receiver of all the Texans receivers multiple times. And that's a really good wide receiver room. It's not like he's by far the best one in that. So a lot of good. All I'm saying is this is in the back of my mind, and I don't think it's some sort of like potential season ender if Stefon Diggs isn't a true captain, if you will. I'm just saying this is a guy that's hopefully for an entire year finally going to enjoy the ride and not get mad about the bumps along the way, because it's a long year and there's always bumps along the way. It's not like Diggs has really been through the most bumpy roads.
No, he hasn't.
We're driving on Westheimer. We're driving on the highway.
Yeah, Westheimer, the worst thing in the city.
It's pretty bad.
It's pretty bad. Do you trust CJ? Do you believe in CJ's leadership and DeMeco's enough to balance out some of the concerns with Diggs, though? That because of what we've seen already from Stroud and because of what we've seen from DeMeco in just a year, that they can have a better impact on Diggs than McDermott and Josh Allen and Zimmer and Cousins / Keenum did in Buffalo and Minnesota.
I actually do. I think that playing for a guy who's played before is huge. Not the end all be all, but it's a tiebreaker. Sean McDermott, come on. I mean, we know about the legendary speeches he was giving in the locker room. I think it's incredible that they finished out the season winning the games the way that they did. That article came out on the Go Long Substack at a point where you would think that he's going to get fired potentially in the next couple of weeks. Like, is he even going to make it to December?
I didn't think so.
I didn't either.
I didn't think so.
I didn't either. They were the biggest disappointment in the NFL for the first 2/3 of the year. And then they finished the year with James Cook and the running game taking things over. And next thing you know, I mean, they had a chance to beat the Chiefs, and Josh Allen threw a ball deep down the field, and there was a wide receiver who was open, and the ball bounced off his hands. His name was Stefon Diggs. He's now a Houston Texan.
Yeah, I do think that CJ and and D'Amico have enough just cachet already within, like you said, because D'Amico's a former player. I mean, you mentioned earlier, the arguments against Stefon Diggs in terms of like, what do you have to really complain about? And you mentioned Andre Johnson. All D'Amico has to do is bring up Andre Johnson and be like, hey, this guy never complained. He just went into the Hall of Fame. He never caught double-digit touchdowns in a single season. Like, he just showed up and did his job on a daily basis. Like, I've seen what real struggle for a great wide receiver looks like. Diggs doesn't have that. And with CJ, as I still think what he had in college, actually, with the amount of talent that was on his teams. I mean, at one point he had 5 guys who would eventually be drafted in the first round of the NFL, and he just threw it to the ball to the guys that were open. And as long as CJ is doing that, I think Diggs will be okay. And as long as they're winning, he'll for sure be okay.
He had an interesting article in GQ. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed his advice. Women pay attention to shoes. Got to pay attention to that, guys. You got to pay attention to that. A texter, and this person's been texting in all day. This seems to be a big Stefon Diggs supporter from the 832. Imagine telling Diggs to just enjoy the ride and ignore the bumps, yet you have paid attention to every bump he's hit and can't enjoy the ride of him as a Texan. No, I didn't say that at all. I think it's very fair to wonder about his past because we're talking about a decade worth of history here. Well, that's just gone now because he's here on the Houston Texans. It goes away on the Houston Texans. Yeah. Again, great year last year. Does feel like a totally different franchise these days. Still the Houston Texans.
100%.
Remember when they added Ed Reed? Vibes were pretty good then too. And you didn't have any of these questions. And then guess what Ed Reed did in the middle of the year where the Texans, of course, lost 14 games in a row. Called out the coaching staff and he got cut.
Yeah, I don't really understand the text, to be honest. Like, yes, if Stefon Diggs and I were having a conversation, if he was here doing an interview, I would say, do you care about what people on the outside say? He would probably say no. And I'd say, well, then why are you worried about all these different little things that are happening? It seems like, because it does feel like he is more aware than most of what's being said about him. We saw that on social media last year when he was, tweeting about Josh Allen he was subtweeting Josh Allen, like pretty consistently. That was happening. I don't really get it. Like, his perspective and our perspective are two different things. Like what Diggs should think versus what we think of him.
Diggs shouldn't listen to us.
Yeah, like Diggs should just care about winning football games. We're going to see in the first preseason game, or I guess the second preseason game, like a very normal conversation happening on the sideline with Diggs and CJ Stroud. And then you saw all these Buffalo fans were the ones who were clipping it and trying to be like, see, Stefon Diggs already causing problems in Houston, when in reality, all it was just like a conversation about a play and what went right and what went wrong. Like, everyone's going to make a bigger deal about Diggs than most wide receivers because he fits into the diva category.
The first sideline,
he's all those guys.
The first sideline moment, it's going to be blown up and it's going to be discussed. And I will probably take Diggs' side in those moments. But it's when the passive-aggressive stuff starts happening. And also, just the human nature of wide receivers out there. They all want the ball every single play. Is he going to be able to handle this? This is the best receiver room he's ever been in. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I know he's been there with, I think he had a couple of years with Adam Thielen still at the top of his game.
Oh, yeah.
Minnesota.
Yeah.
But, ever since his time in Buffalo, I mean, he's been the top dog. And it's changing this year. And while he's still, I think, a very good player based off of the first half of last year, it's one thing to say you'll enjoy all this. What happens in a game where you lose and you get the ball 3 times? Because there will be multiple games where they lose and he doesn't get the ball that much.
As long as the other guys don't do it. You can only have one diva on the roster. As long as we see, like, introduced any diva tendencies from Nico and Tank, which I don't think we will. As long as we don't see that, then we'll be okay. Then they'll be okay.